Hello, hello, and welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich. And if you are watching this on YouTube or wherever on video, you can see that behind me, I'm actually in a hotel room. I am walking the talk, right? This is the laptop lifestyle. My daughter had a baby and we're spending a couple weeks in her neck of the woods to hang out with her and her kids. And I get to do that because I've created this life and this business, right? That I teach you how to create. So, if you're not following me on YouTube, you should do that. Go to KarenYankovich.com/YouTube or just go to YouTube and put my name in and you can find it. Excited to be here today because, listen, it's not always easy to walk the talk, right? Like I talk about the laptop lifestyle, but I also really love to be in my office, right? It's where I'm most comfortable and where I have all my stuff. You can see I brought my microphone. I've got things like a tripod and stuff here for other kinds of things that I need to do. And I've worked really hard for that, right? And I've worked with so many brilliant women who feel almost like they're the expert, right? But not quite. Or maybe you're the expert, and you're just not always seen that way, or you feel like you always have to justify it. And I don't ever want you to have to justify it. I want you to magnetize it. I want you to just exude this, like be the lighthouse that people are coming to you, right? And we talk a lot about how to build authority with PR and things like that. But what we're going to talk about today is anchoring, right? Is anchoring. I call this like your authority anchor, what the inner foundation that helps you show up, not just visibly, but unshakably, right? Like so that you are just so confident in what you do that other people know exactly what you do. And we have a little bit of a different format here today. I'm going to be sharing 3 authority building tips in 3 minutes, right? And then we'll unpack what they mean and how you can apply them on LinkedIn, in your offers, in your mindset, all the things. Okay. So let's drop in, right? 3 ways to anchor your authority from the inside out. 3 and 3. Tip number 1. Mine your origin authority. Your authority is rooted in your why. What personal experience made you care about the work you do today? That's the spark of trust. That's what your audience wants to hear from you. Tip number 2, stay consistently visible in your zone of brilliance. Okay. Authority fades in silence. Show up consistently. You don't have to be everywhere, but in that one place where your magic is the clearest. Could be LinkedIn, could be podcasting, could be speaking. It's different for everyone, but stay consistently visible in your zone of brilliance. And tip number 3, create one signature framework. Package your expertise, one signature system, one signature talk, one method, one framework. This signals that you're not just experienced, you're the go-to for what it is that's in your zone of brilliance, right? So that's your 3 and 3. Now we're going to dig into what makes each of these so powerful and how you can put them into action right now. But before we get into the details, before we get into all the deep stuff around these 3 and 3, I want to just let you know that I've created a brand new simple way for you to get started with this work. I know I've talked to so many people that listen to the show, and sometimes it's the right time to join us in our She's Linked Up community. Sometimes it's just not the right time yet. So if you're in that in-between stage, if you know you need a little boost, but you don't necessarily are not necessarily ready to join the full community, we've got something for you. Go to theboostbundle.com. It is a simple set of tools that just kind of get you started with this work, right? I'm always here for you if you want more, but the Boost Bundle that we've just created, the LinkedIn NPR Boost Bundle, hot. It is so hot. It is so good. It's got all the good stuff for you to get started. Boostbundle.com is where you need to go to get that. So check that out. Now let's dive in. I want to start a little bit with why this even matters. So many women are out here trying to get visible, right? We're posting, we're pitching, we're promoting, but the reason it's not sticking is because it's not rooted in something solid, right? When your authority isn't anchored, every rejection feels personal. Every drop in engagement, which, let's get real, happens, we take it personally. It feels like a failure, right? But when it's anchored in your story, when it's anchored in your strategy, when it's anchored in your offers, you become magnetic. And that is the sweet spot. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for every single person in our She's Linked Up community. That's what I want for you. So let's dive deep into each tip that we talked about in our 3 and 3 today. Tip 1, mind your origin story. Let's talk about let me tell you first why this matters, right? Why does this matter? People don't buy your offer, right? Like you don't buy like we don't buy a pair of shoes because we woke up and said, like I need shoes for the most part. For the most part. I mean, listen, maybe you are buying shoes because you need shoes, right? Most of us don't need shoes. Most people listening to this, we buy them because we want to look cool because they're great. We love how they feel on us. That's we believe that those shoes are going to make us feel different, be seen different, whatever, right? Same with your offers. They're not buying your offer, they're buying your belief. They're buying your belief in what you can do for them. Okay. So I want you to think for a minute about what moment in your life made you need to do this work. Right. And I can tell you a little bit about me. I mean, listen, if you've listened to this, if you're a podcast listener, you've heard a lot about this kind of stuff, right? But from my story, but I started this work. I was, I was 50 maybe. I mean, I didn't do this in my 20s. I had my children in my early 20s, and in my 20s, I became a single mom in my 30s and with 4 kids. And I worked so hard, and I felt I don't regret anything that I did because I don't live that way. I did what I felt was the right thing to do at the time. And for me, it was right. I needed that consistent paycheck. I needed that consistent benefits. I needed to bring consistency into my kids' life. I needed to keep a roof over their head. Right? I needed to keep a roof over my head. And I didn't know that there was another way. And maybe at the time there wasn't another way, at least not the way there is now, right? We didn't have social media. I didn't have the reach then that I have the ability to have now, right? Right now, you have the ability to have the same reach that like Pepsi has, right? You have the same ability to do that. We didn't have that back when I was raising my kids. I'm sure that I'm not making that as an excuse because I'm sure there was other ways I can do this, right? But I missed a lot of things. Oh my gosh, did I miss a lot of things? I missed a lot of things with my kids. I had an hour plus commute almost always, no matter what job I had. I lived in northern New Jersey. It's like the commute capital of the world. So I had an hour commute, a full day of work, and then coming home and, doing all the things, baseball games, dance practice, all the things. And then let's get real, laundry and everything else. And I had 4 kids. I was a single mom. I couldn't afford any help around the house. Like it just wasn't a thing. So as my kids started to get older and as the world started to shift into this more virtual way of doing things, I started to see that there was a different way of doing this, right? And I started to see other women who were doing what I did and who, again, were missing out on things, right? We're missing out on things because we had to be at work. And I started to see that was a different way. And I started to want to help other women see that there was a different way. I also saw how I guess the systemic belief that men were the breadwinners and women were whatever women were, right? So I can distinctly remember the moment in time that the switch flipped in my head where I was like, I'm not doing this for a second anymore. I need to be able to provide for myself and my kids without relying on anybody else, without relying on their dad and child support, without relying even on the things that he was supposed to do, right? I couldn't rely on that anymore. I needed to know that I could do it no matter what. And it wasn't a pretty moment. You know what I mean? It wasn't a pretty moment in my life or my child's life at that moment in time. But it was that light bulb moment for me that said, enough is enough. I need to take the reins of this. And that's what bridges me into the experience of credibility, right? I have been there. I have been there not knowing where I was going to, how I was going to pay the bills. I have been there not knowing how I was going to be able to give my kids the kind of life I want to be able to give them. Okay. And this is what becomes your intro into your world. Now I'm sitting here right now. I told you at the beginning of this episode that I'm sitting here in a hotel room that I booked for 2 weeks near my daughter because she just had a baby and I want to be there for her, right? I get to do that now because of that light bulb moment all those years ago. And had I still had that full-time job and that paycheck and all that stuff, I probably wouldn't have, number one, had the money, because even with a paycheck, I wasn't making $500,000 a year. You know what I mean? I was making a good paycheck, but it was, paycheck money, not entrepreneur money. And I wouldn't have been able to take the time, right? I had a set number of vacation times. I made that decision that I was going to have a different kind of life, and I've created that for myself. So that's my origin story. What's your origin story, right? I want you to mine that origin story in your marketing, in your LinkedIn About section, in a pinned video on YouTube or a pinned podcast episode or in your keynote hook, right? This is what's anchoring your authority. Does that make sense? Tip number 2, stay consistently visible in your zone of brilliance. Now, here's the deal. I love what I do and I love creating content for you, but do I love that I have to be consistent with it? No, because there are times that I just want to take time. Like I'm here in a hotel room. Would I have loved to have had 10 episodes of this recorded already? Maybe. I don't actually mind doing this. But staying consistently in your zone of genius isn't always easy, which is one of the reasons why I choose LinkedIn as the place that I want to show up with my zone of brilliance, because I don't have to post there 3 times a day. I don't have to post it. I can post there 3 times a week and I'm still getting that same authority. In fact, LinkedIn's algorithm doesn't want you to post multiple times a day, right? So I get to be a little bit lazy and still get to be consistent and still get to have that authority, right? So this is where I show up most confidently and consistently. And so think about, where do you want to show up most confidently and consistently? And are you showing up there enough? Okay. It doesn't have, I mean, listen, you're here, you're listening to this. So I'm guessing that you're here for LinkedIn tips, right? But a weekly LinkedIn post about a client breakthrough, maybe, commenting on a couple of aligned industry leaders posts every day, maybe some audio events or newsletters that deepen your thought leadership, but being consistent in that one place. I'm using LinkedIn as an example here. That's all you have to do, right? You don't have to shout louder. You just need to tune that dial so that you're right on target where you need to be, staying consistently visible in your zone of brilliance. Okay. That's tip number 2. And tip number 3, create one signature framework. Create one signature framework. People need to see your process to trust your results. Okay. So, it took me a little while to realize that I was kind of doing the same thing with all my different clients, even though it was customized to them, right? But my process is the same, right? So maybe yours is too. What are the 3 to 5 steps you take people through every time, even if it's informally, right? Even if it's informally. So this is what is important. This is what's important. And it makes it easier for you to pitch yourself for features and podcasts and even speaking engagements. And speaking of speaking engagements, you want to have a signature talk that aligns with your signature framework. And I remember one time I was speaking at a conference and I had talked at the same conference 4 years in a row. And I distinctly remember thinking to myself, because I walk the talk. I have a signature talk, right? And I modify that signature talk for each talk that I do. And I customize it. You're not just going to get boilerplate from me ever, but it is a signature. It's the same framework. So I remember on that 4th year or something, I was like, what? How am I going to modify this? How am I going to show up to show that this is different? And I remember somebody coming up to me after the talk and specifically saying to me, how do you do this, Karen? How do you come up with a new talk every year? And I literally my whole insides were cracking up, because I was like, this is the same exact talk I did the last 3 years. I just changed the examples, changed the way I laid it out, changed, I modified it for the times. I created a new focus on them, but it was the same talk, the same framework, because I have this consistency in that background, right? So doesn't only make it easier for you to pitch yourself for things, it makes it easier for you to deliver those things, because you're not all over the place. And I can tell you, because maybe some of you guys that have been around with me a long time, 10 years or so, you've probably seen the different things that I've done over the 10 years. The further I veer away from my zone of brilliance, the less money I make. Did you hear that? The further I veer away from my zone of brilliance, the less money I make. And there was a time that I had an agency and we did social media management for clients. And when you do social media management for clients, there's a scope creep that could happen, right? All of a sudden, well, listen, we're writing your blog for you anyway. We can just post it on your website. We'll just post it on your WordPress site. It's a piece of cake. Well, the next thing you know, you're responsible for the WordPress website, right? So I'm not blog posting that's certainly not my zone of brilliance, right? So I'm a people pleaser. I want to make my clients happy. And what I didn't realize at the time was the further away I was getting from my zone of brilliance, the less I was really helping my clients. It's just honest. It's just the truth. It's just the honest to God truth. So create one signature framework, stay in your zone of brilliance with that framework, and just deliver it over and over and over and over. So what I want you to think about today is, where are you currently unanchored in your authority? This is actually like maybe even a journaling quote, journaling prompt. Where are you currently unanchored in your authority? And then which tip, right? Your origin story, consistency, or that framework, what's the easiest starting point in that place that you're currently unanchored in your authority? Okay. And then here's the mindset work that I want you to do. Like literally close your eyes and spend 10 minutes just feeling how it's going to feel to be known for your method and your brilliance instead of your hustle. Like, ladies, I remember the moment in time where I was working for a guy who said to me, "Oh, everybody says they're too busy, but nobody's ever that busy." And then he looked at me and he goes, "Well, except you. You really are that busy." And like, I think he meant it as a compliment, but it was like a stab to the heart to me. Like, I don't want to be known for my hustle, right? I'm tired. I'm tired. I raised 4 kids. I got all these grandkids now, which is so amazing and so fun. I want to be spending time with them, not hustling in my business, right? I want to magnetize business. I want to be known for what I want to be known for instead of known for my hustle. Okay. So today we talked about anchoring your authority, why you need to do that, how to do that, and what changes when you lead from that place. Okay. So remember those 3 tips. Tip number one, the tip number one, mine your origin story. Tip number 2, stay consistently visible in your zone of brilliance. And tip number 3, create one signature framework and do it over and over and over and over. So remember, if you want a little support, turning your brilliance into a bold brand, just going over to theboostbundle.com, theboostbundle.com. Check that out. It's our newest offering. We haven't done something like this maybe ever, but certainly not in a lot of years, where we've given you like a little entryway into the work we do here. So check that out at theboostbundle.com. And remember that you're already the expert. I know that, and you know. Let's just make sure now that the world knows it. See you next week.